All right, all right, all right. Welcome everyone to this episode of The Full Set. I am here with my esteemed colleagues, which is my favorite thing to say whenever I have dope Black people on the show. I'm with Kiani Conley Wilson, Naima Penniman, and Leah Penniman. And if you want to start with Kiani, I just want to say welcome. And can you introduce yourself? Oh, you're on mute, Kiani.
Yeah, so my name is Kiani Conley Wilson. I recently started working at Soulfire the beginning of this year. I'm the assistant program manager, so I help out with coordinating a whole bunch of events and all the educational stuff that we're doing and some of the Soulfire in the City work. And I also run my own community garden in Troy, New York, in North Central, which is a food apartheid section of Troy, and I also do a lot of community organizing through the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Naima, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Yes, peace everyone. My name is Naima Penniman, and I'm honored to be the program director this year at Soulfire Farm. And in that role, I'm coordinating the Afro-Indigenous farming immersions, builders immersions, and workshops to level up our land-based skills and supporting folks in becoming or increasing leadership as farmers and food justice organizers. I'm also the co-founder of WILDSEED Community Farm and Healing Village, which is a Black and brown-led intentional community focused on intergenerational responsibility through ecological collaboration and transformative justice. And I'm also an artist, a poet, an MC, and a healer. And I love to facilitate, I love to learn and teach, and love to support us in keeping our imaginations alive so that we can really co-create the worlds that our hearts know is possible. So yeah, here in service to life.
Thank you so much. And Leah, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? I promise we're going to get all into all the topics and all the things.
Ashe. I'm Leah Penniman, and yes, Naima and I are truly sisters. I am a mother, a farmer, an author, food sovereignty activist at Soulfire Farm, which has been my heart project for 15 years now. I'm also the author of a love song for the land and people, which the title is Farming While Black. So I'm super happy to be here to talk about this really important work of connecting our folks to the lands and to the foods that give us life. And thank you for having us.
Well, again, thank you all for joining us. I think I want to jump right into the work. So I keep hearing this term about food sovereignty. And one, I don't know really what it means. It sounds super religious. It sounds amazingly holistic. It sounds like something I don't know about because I love my GMOs. What is it that food sovereignty is? And why is it important to Black folks? Because each person on this call has a extreme, strong Black heritage. So what is that about? And I will unmute everybody.
I'll start on that topic. So first of all, I need to give a shout out to our Indigenous comrades for coming up with the term food sovereignty. This term is rooted in the international peasant movement called Via Campesina, and it refers to not just having enough to eat, but actually having control and democracy in every aspect of the food system, from who owns the land, to who gets to be a farmer, to how much those farmers get paid, right, to distribution, consumption, the whole food system. And I think Mama Fannie Lou Hamer put it so well in terms of why it's important to Black people. She said, if you have 400 quarts of greens and gumbo soup canned for the winter, nobody can push you around or tell you what to say or do. In contrast, if you have nothing canned for the winter, as soon as they chain up those grocery stores or empty their shelves, you will be crawling on your knees doing whatever it takes to feed your children. So if we don't have food sovereignty in our own communities, it means that we're fundamentally like bound to a system that hates us, that hates Black bodies for our very, very survival. And so when we talk about food sovereignty, we are talking about how do we make sure we have lands, we have farms, we have kitchens, right? We have all the things we need in our community for us to survive.
Thank you. Do Naima or Kiani want to take any additional action on that question?
I think Leah said it perfectly. Happy to speak to like how food sovereignty is really highlighted in the context of this pandemic and the way that Soulfire in the City is working to help address that. But we can also wait on that too if we want to.
Okay. Yep, those are all the things. So I think about you know, y'all's location and the relationship to this new project you're launching, Soulfire in the City. So Soulfire is a farm. Y'all are really I've been to the farm. Y'all are really out here, Black and farming while Black. And this is amazing, right? And I do love that y'all give a lot of sovereignty, if that's the word we're using, to Indigenous folks and the land in which Soulfire is located on. And so when you talk about launching this project, Soulfire in the City, what does it look like to bring farming to the inner city community, or these words and terms that people, funders understand?
So Soulfire in the City, for folks that don't know, is a project that Soulfire Farm is coordinating to support families in establishing their own home gardens, like raised bed gardens, where they can begin to grow some of their own food and medicine in place. And it's actually not a new program. It was established 3 or 4 years ago. Leah, feel free to correct me. And was seeded by Soulfire team member Amani Olugbala. And we began helping to create those gardens. And this year we've amplified our efforts because the need has grown. We know that the situation for folks of color and Indigenous folks have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. The access to fresh and nourishing food was already an issue before the pandemic and is only being exemplified as the emergency food system is struggling to keep up with increased demands, and we're experiencing loss of income, and grocery stores don't have the surplus food to donate. So given that, the interest in the program quadrupled very quickly. And so in response, we have also increased our efforts, bringing in more volunteers, recognizing that it really takes community collaboration and mutual aid to support one another. Because it's very important to us that these gardens aren't just going to people who are young and able-bodied, but also to our elders, folks with chronic illness or disability. And we're really centering folks from low-income families, Black, Indigenous, people of color, folks who are coming home from prison or impacted by mass incarceration as well. And just recognizing that when we are able to provide for some of the means of our own sustenance, that has everything to do with our health and survival. And this idea, of course, isn't new, right? We've been doing provision gardens, home gardens, as back through generations.
Right.
And so we're really lifting up and building on this legacy of our families, our lineages, our ancestors, and working together to be able to support this resurgence of home gardening happening. So through the program, we're offering all the materials, from the lumber to the soil, the compost, the seeds, the seedlings, as well as the labor and the guidance to support families in being able to grow their own food during this time.
Thank you, Naima. And so, Kiani, Leah, what does it look like during this pandemic, this super serious pandemic that we're in the midst of, COVID-19, the coronavirus? What does food justice look like during this time?
So I would say like what we're doing really is like an example of food justice during this time, because not only are we helping folks like build their own gardens, but also helping them like learn new skills that they can pass down and share in their communities and their families and all of that. So that's really what I have to think about like food justice right off the top of my head right now.
That's beautiful, Kiani. And I want to amplify and build on that. I think it's absolutely about home gardens. It's also about food distribution. So at Soulfire Farm, almost every calorie that comes out of this land is going to people impacted by food apartheid, survivors of mass incarceration. And we work with other farmers in the area too to try to help them distribute their food to those who need it most, right? But it doesn't stop there, I think, with that direct people to people, because right now, those fundamental cracks in the system that oppress farm workers, that leave children hungry, those are just laid bare. Like, they were always there. It was always whack that farm workers don't have any paid days off, right? It was always super whack that farm workers don't have the right to unionize. It's super whack that 1 in 3 Black children go to bed hungry every single night, right? But now like everyone is seeing it who didn't see it before. So we need to be organizing and mobilizing on a political level as well to fundamentally change that. Like, how is it that in 2020, the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is the main labor law we have in this country, excludes farm workers, food workers, and domestic workers? How is that in 2020? So I think we're in a moment right now where if there was ever any denying that we have a super racist food system, a white supremacist food system, we can't deny that anymore. And I think it's time for us to not just like, yes, build gardens, yes, give away food, help our neighbors, go shopping for them, yes, ashe, right? And also organize.
I'm so glad you said, first of all, that Naima came out here with ancestors and Leah's talking about organizing. And so both of those things are very important to me. And when we talk about the connection that we have with our ancestors, I think that most folks who are not involved in certain spiritual practices think of it as a very baseline level. But when y'all talk about, you know, I'm like, reading your Facebook posts has really kept me engaged, because I became a little tiny maybe baby farmer 2 years ago. And I was telling Kiani when Kiani came to my house, I was like, I just do perennials, that's it. Like, you know, so what is it about our connection to the ancestors? And if we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, as the quote says, what is the connection that we have with our ancestors and the responsibility that we have not only to take care of the land, but one another through food sustainability? I know it's a lot.
I mean, I'm happy to jump in on the ancestors always. So what I didn't mention in my bio is, in addition to this farming stuff, I'm also a member of clergy in traditional West African religion, both Vodun and Yoruba. And the ancestors are part of daily life. So our cosmology, our belief system as African heritage people, is that the ancestors are not under the earth, right? They are with us. They are in the wind, they're in the trees, they're in the soil, they're in our own hearts. And fundamentally, that means we're not alone, which is a really beautiful thing, especially in this time. But it also means that all of those generations of wisdom, we have it with us. Like, our ancestors, they survived the lower holds of slave ships. Like, they survived the Spanish flu, they survived the plague, like they survived all these things. And so we can literally communicate with them and call upon them to give us strength and wisdom and guidance in these times, which is very powerful. And they hold us accountable. Like, our ancestors looking over our shoulder, being like, so what is it you're doing with your time? And how are you sharing with your neighbors? And how are you being your best self? And I think it's like having a whole lot of parents, which is a good thing. You're muted, Dee. Dee, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
I clicked the button twice and it didn't want to be my friend. And that's because you know that we are telling the truth here today. So I just wanted to say, hearing that explanation of why it's important to stay connected to not only the land, but the life that we say we're living, like our ancestors do keep us accountable to them. And it shows up in ways that you would not even imagine. I really appreciate hearing that framing, because I was like, when I think of economic justice, when I think of environmental justice, when I think of farming, I don't think of Black folks and I'm Black, right? And so like seeing all of y'all on this call modeling, and there's so many. If you go to Soul Fire Farm's website, you will be able, I love that about y'all, that you say everyone is in a position of leadership, and there's really no hierarchical kind of system that's like, oh, you a baby farmer, this and the third. So I might be in leadership too, I don't know. So what steps are y'all taking, and thank you, Naima, for telling me I was on mute. What steps are y'all taking during the midst of this pandemic with your program to showcase that you are adhering to CDC guidelines? I mean, we're talking about food and COVID, you know?
I can begin to speak to that. So as we are all in this process of some major adaptation, Soulfire 2 is, taking seriously everything that the CDC is putting out in terms of guidelines. So we have created a visitor policy that anybody who's on farm physically needs to agree to. And I can speak as the person in helping to coordinate the programming. We've been doing a lot of parallel planning and pivoting for some of our on-farm offerings, from community farm days to workshops to online platforms. And we do hope we'll be able to gather in health and safety this season for some of our on-farm programming, but we're waiting to make that call until mid-May. And in the meantime, we've mobilized to host some online skill shares, like virtual skill shares for Black, Indigenous, people of color farmers around the pandemic. And Leah also started Ask a Sister Farmer, which is a weekly show on Fridays on Facebook Live and on Zoom, where folks can call in and ask their questions about growing food and medicine, with their questions answered by Black farmer panelists that Leah has assembled. And that's been a lot of fun. Like, literally thousands of people have been joining to learn about how they can grow food in containers on their fire escape or turn their lawns into gardens, and a great way of just sharing tips and resources. The first episode I was sharing, for example, about how to sprout in jars or like create fresh greens on your windowsill. So really accessible tools for folks. And that's a way that, even though we can't welcome groups of people to the farm in this moment, that we can continue to share the knowledge. And
oh, I think we're frozen, Naima. While Naima's getting their life together for a second, I wanted to ask, when we talk about, you were saying sprouting and stuff like that, why is it important to you all to, I think I hear a lot, especially like with my following, like, why do you make everything about race? So why is it so important for you to say Black farming? And even sometimes we as Black folks, we have those questions. To any of you, I would ask the question, why is it so important to uplift the fact that there is food apartheid, right? And people think they're so severe when you say that, but it is necessary to use language important, right? And when you, not just food apartheid, but like a lot of our communities have food deserts and don't have access to fresh, healthy food. And so why is it important? Why is y'all's work important? Like what with the, like, I mean, come on, like what main programs that y'all have y'all's immersion, you have a Black farmer, and I don't want to mess up the name, but it's a farmer immersion program. And I know a lot of people travel from across the country and even across the world to come and learn from y'all, because y'all have been learned upon by different countries, Ghana, Haiti, Mexico. And so what does that look like? Why are these terms important to uplift, and why is it so severe?
I can jump in on that, because I think that it's not that we're trying to make everything about race, but it would be very dishonest to talk about the food system without talking about race. Whose labor built the food system and continues to maintain the food system? You look at enslavement, sharecropping, tenant farming, right? And then the new wave of migrant labor. And still to this day, 85% of the hands that bring our food to our plates are Black and brown hands, right? Convict leasing, which is the system where people who are incarcerated are made to work for free on farms. That's at an all-time high since 1900 because of the draconian immigration policies. Black men are being put out to work harvesting because they were incarcerated and working for free. It's a form of neo-slavery, right? So the food system would collapse without Black and brown folks. And also, 98% of the arable land in this country, meaning 98% of the land that can grow food, is white owned, which is at an all-time high. So wealth and land are getting concentrated over the generations. And this is not something that folks are talking about, which is why we need to bring that to light. And on the flip side, you know, when you come to Soulfire for one of our farming immersion programs, or, you know, attend something online, what we're going to uplift is not just the pain and trauma associated with our land-based heritage, but the noble and dignified contributions of our ancestors to pretty much everything good that we have with farming. You know, when we think about organic, we're talking about raised beds and cover crops and compost. We can trace that stuff back to Black farmers, Cleopatra, George Washington Carver, you know, Mama Fannie Lou Hamer. And so it's very important that we reclaim that legacy to understand that our experience with the land is not defined by the oppression, but actually reaches back much farther, much wider, much deeper than what happened to us in light of white supremacy.
Thank you. And I want to welcome Naima back. And I appreciate that so much, because even myself, as an activist, you know, I can quote Fannie Lou Hamer, you know, and do the sound bites and put the things in my articles. But until we really research where we come from, which goes back to the ancestors, right, then we really do not know. I did not know that Fannie Lou Hamer was about food justice, right? I thought she was just a part of SNCC and this, you know. And so I think that, first of all, I have to be honest, I just copped your book. Like, Amazon was like, we're problematic and that's why we're extorting you and you won't get it until May 7th. And so then I downloaded on Kindle. I'm doing all the things. But I just think that y'all's program is so amazing, and the many programs that y'all have, you know, you build community in ways that I'm not sure y'all are aware the impact that you have on people. And so with that, I wanted to ask, when we talk about Black futures and Afrofuturism, right? I'm not sure there's a conversation built into Octavia's Brood about food justice and what does it look like? What world are we imagining going forward, right? What does it look like even after COVID? If we can call that a Black future, which I'd like to, I don't know if y'all want to, but what does it look like even after COVID has dissipated, after the vaccines are released? When folks go back to capitalism as a source of means, right? What does it look like for Black farmers and how can we support y'all?
Gotcha. Sorry, I'm just like thinking of all, like so I did the farming immersion program last summer. And when I came onto the farm, I just felt like, yeah, like this is the future. Like I didn't feel like the pressures of like racism and class and all of that. I felt like really relaxed and I could be like my full self. And I think that's what the future really looks like, us bringing our full selves, our activist selves, our farmer selves, all the different aspects of who we are, and also uplifting that and like sharing our differences in like really like wholesome kinds of ways, and sharing food and just, I don't know, just looking like, and I really hope COVID, like the outcomes of COVID like really has been like identifying all these like cracks in capitalism, and really want to and I really hope that in the future like we'll be able to like spend time together and like bring our own selves, like learn more about ourselves, be able to practice our spiritual like practices and all of that. And that's really what I hope to see in the future.
Thank you, Kiani. Leah, Naima, do y'all want to take that?
So this problem when all the panelists are too nice and they're trying to let the other person go. I'll just be really, really brief. Shade to everything Kiani said. I would just add that additionally, when we talk about post-capitalism, which I pray is the direction we're going in, we really need to, Well, I'll just tell you a quick story. So this won't be super brief. So one of my mentors, Ed Whitfield, Black economist, radical organizer, you know, he said, imagine that your neighbor came over to your house and stole your cow. And then a couple of weeks later came over, remorseful, with tears in his eyes, being like, I'm so sorry, that was wrong that I stole your cow. I'm gonna make it up to you though. Every week for the rest of the cow's life, I'm gonna bring you half a pound of butter. What would you probably say? I know I'd be like, I want my cow back, right? And so when we talk about this post-COVID, this Black futures, reparations has to be part of it, because the reason that, you know, a white baby born today is on average 16 times wealthier than a Black baby born today is not because the white child was doing calisthenics in the womb to earn the money, right? It's because of inheritance. It's because of a whole legacy of stolen lands and stolen labor that has compounded every generation and widened the wealth gap every generation. So we have to, in recreating a society that is fair and just, we have to actually return the land. We have to return the wealth. We have to return the dignity and opportunities to the people from whom those things were stolen. And that allows us the conditions to then build and fortify our own thrival.
Yes, Leah, I'm so glad you uplifted that necessity of reparations and radical redistribution of wealth and land and power in our Black futures that we're calling in. I think that's absolutely essential. And I'll just add to this beautiful tapestry that y'all already laid out, that a really important part of the future I'm calling in and co-collaborating with all these forces that are orchestrating change right now is a deep prayer that we will have a resurgence into our sense of interconnectedness and interdependence that I feel like has been eroded in many ways in our current society. And I think the irony of the pandemic, where many of us are isolated or experiencing some forced separation, that this can be a moment of reckoning to remember how much our health is intimately bound with the health of one another. I feel like that's also laid bare, and that it's truly vital for all of our survival that we're able to collaborate in deeper ways with one another, and also with all the elements, including like all the members of our ecosystem and our land, in order to be able to create that viable future. So a humble remembering that we're members and not masters of creation, and recognizing that we need one another to survive.
I'm gonna cry because I feel like I was gonna ask, oh my God, I was gonna ask, like, what role does art play in farming? And the poet, the resident poet on this call was just, it was just so beautiful. Like, thank you for those words. My last question to y'all is, for folks that are at home, people are commenting and saying that they love y'all. And this is just really, it's really important that we did this. For folks who are at home and they're wanting to get started, and yes, when we talk about radical redistribution, y'all need to click on that PayPal link, that GoFundMe link, and make that radical redistribution. Some of y'all white people got $1,200, $1,700, and y'all need to make a clap right there. So when we talk about healing, what does that look like? And how can folks connect to the land if they are not anywhere near Soulfire or New York? Or, you know, what does it look like for them to connect with other Black farmers? What does it look like for them to connect? I love that Naima said to just like find out what our interconnectedness is. What does that look like? How can someone start?
I'll speak to the spiritual aspect of it, and I'm hoping now I will speak to like the how to grow food in 2 square inches part of it. But you know, one of the teachings of traditional West African cosmology is that every single being in the universe has Ori, like has a spark of God, a spark of divine, a consciousness, an awakeness, aliveness. So it means in essence that all of the universe is contained even in the smallest pebble, even in a single tree. And so I invite folks to meditate on that truth and find whatever it is, whether it's a little plant in your household, a handful of earth from the grave of one of your ancestors, the tree you can see outside the window, and commune with that, meditate with that, make offerings, give praise to that, because that becomes a telephone to connect us to all the goodness of all the universe. And the earth is still there. Even if there's layers of concrete between, you can close your eyes, put your bare feet down on that apartment floor, and pull up the energy from the sacred earth through those layers of concrete. And that will give us strength. That's why our ancestors survived all they went through. The land was not the oppressor, even though it was the scene of the crime. The land was actually the source of strength. And so call upon it to hold you firm.
Y'all are preaching on Beyonce's bandwidth today. Thank you. Kiani, do you have any last words? And then I just want to share something and then we can close out.
Yeah, and you can definitely grow just like inside your apartment, like on the fire escape, or like inside. Like I have 1,000,000 seedlings right now in my apartment. Partially are Soulfire in the city seedlings, partially are for my own community garden and common greens. So you can really just like connect with the earth like any kind of way. And like Leah said, just meditating as well is a really powerful way to connect.
Thank you. And I have to say something. So when I found out that Naima was a poet, first of all, I had been new, but I didn't really know until like I had to go look all y'all up and be like, okay, like how can I? And I had just cleaned my ancestor altar like 2 days ago. And I was like, I'm asking y'all gave me the green light on this. This is the only reason why I think people have been responding in kind the way that they have and saying, yes, we appreciate what you're trying to do here. And when I found out you were a poet, I was just like, it would be amazing because we don't uplift Black art enough. If you could do a poem, but I was like, that's kind of weird because I already have the list of what they said they wanted to talk about or whatever. I was like, oh, I'm gonna leave it to y'all. And then Naima came out of nowhere and was like, I'd like to do a poem if that's okay. So I just want to hold space for that we do need to listen to our folks because they know what's best for us. And Naima, if you want to lead us out, I would be.
Oh, I'd be so honored, Sister Judy. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share and for uplifting Black voices and art and imagination and storytelling and activation. And I'm just so proud to be part of this team and so proud to be part of this extended network of soil stewards and earth lovers and community builders who are really working together to rebuild and to nourish what is possible towards the futures we deserve. So thank you. And yes, so happy to offer this poem that is a bit of an anthem or an invocation for the work that we're doing right now. And again, so far it's not the only one. Like there's so much mobilization happening to support each other in growing our own food. So blessings to all of you, and may this send us home in a good way. Every patch of earth unencumbered by concrete, where soil and atmosphere meet, be a portal to presence, a terrain of remembrance, a vote for survival in an unpromised future. These gardens are blueprints of interdependent destiny, intergenerational memory, saving seeds for food as remedy. See, my people know what it's like to eat and still be starving. So we turn in hardship into harvest, lawns and schoolyards into gardens, homegrown bounty in our palms. We come from soil and stardust. And so we conjure, giving props to hood magicians who grow provisions for our kitchens. We smuggle spinach into prisons, transform the places that we live in, trade psychosis for symbiosis, and stay focused. We sprout sunflowers that tower on neighborhood blocks, harvest raindrops on rooftops to water our crops, propagate plant medicine for the metropolis, guarding our plots because our gardens are not for profit or loss. Cross-pollinate the promise, fam. We got this. Take a deep breath, restore calmness. With lemon balm bounty in our palms, sun gold cherry tomatoes in our pockets, sugar snap peas climbing a chain link fence in this oasis of reclamation, we tend havens for justice and sustenance amid glaring disparity. Every seed saved will set us free. In an age of opulence and scarcity, every seed saved will set us free. In a time of intensifying violence and climate calamity, every seed saved will set us free. Hold on tight to the source. We have all that we need.
I had to keep myself on mute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ashe. Oh. I asked all of my guests before we depart a two-pronged question. One, is there anything that I left out? Because this is a growing curve for me. Is there anything that I left out that you really thought I should have asked you about? And two, who would you like to see on the show? And there are three, y'all, so let's hear it.
I nominate Olive Watkins to be on the show, who is the president of the Black Farmer Fund, a finance vehicle to support farmers who've been left out. And you didn't leave anything out, Sister Dee. I would just say there's some upcoming events. Check us out on Ask a Sister Farmer every Friday at 4 Eastern on Soulfire's Facebook Live page. You can check out, we're having an amazing house dance party in the greenhouse this Saturday night with DJ True Master, which will be a fundraiser for Soulfire in the city. And then every other Sunday, we have these skill shares about how to survive and thrive through COVID-19. So just, follow our social media, check it out, because even though we are physically distanced, we want to be in community with you all. So please stay engaged with us.
Yeah, I don't think you left anything out either. I don't know if you've already had Amani on the show, but I think Amani would be great for this show.
I will email Amani. I have her email address.
Dee, you are fabulous. Thanks for the thoughtful questions. I can't think of anything missing. And I'd love to nominate Mama Asansua Harris, elder and mentor of mine, who's been in the food justice and civil rights movement for her entire life. And I think she has a lot of profound wisdom to share with us. So yeah, I can share her info with you after.
Thank you all very much. This has been a lot, and we did it in such a compact time. Who knew? Black folks is on time today with a word. So thank y'all very much for joining me. This has been another amazing installation of the full set. Episode number 15. I appreciate y'all so much. Y'all are doing the work, and I will share this to my forward-facing profile page and everywhere else, and make sure to give y'all the links once the podcast is up. So thank y'all for blessing us with these words, and I appreciate y'all so much.
Thank you, Dee.
Bye.
Thank you. Peace, everyone.
Hope you have
Bye.
a great day.
Thanks, Kiani. Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Dee.
Bye.